Hey guys, what's happening? So we're back for more all-new Venom, where in this one, not only do we cross another suspect off of the list, but also we find out what the sleeper symbiote's been doing since Venom War. So with that said, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so coming back, this picks up at North Brother Island, at a location that's just referred to as one of NYC's little secrets. But it doesn't take too long for us to find out what this place is, with it being a S.C.A.R facility. And these are the guys we were introduced to back in All New Venom issue 2, when All New Venom went up against S.C.A.R Squad 1. And at the time when we were introduced to these guys, who were Heater, Ripcord, and Slice, they were your first team enforcers, as far as when it comes to going out there and handling symbiotes. But in the larger picture, S.C.A.R stands for symbiote containment and rendition. So for these guys, much like an actual rendition program that would be handled by the CIA, they have the green light to go after any symbiote or even symbiote host who might possibly be a terrorist threat, which is basically every symbiote and symbiote host in Marvel Comics after King in Black, Extreme Carnage, Venom War, and the whole Meridius debacle. And that's why when we come back here now, we find Toxin locked up here, with Flash visiting him and bringing him a meal, which is a 4-pound block of chocolate with some synthesized brain chemicals on the side. And at this time, Toxin is extremely weakened, and mainly because of what happened back in Venom Volume 5, issue 28 or so, back when Bren, Toxin's host, was kidnapped by this group of guys who were killing children as a way to get back at Alchemax for killing their family members back when Alchemax spilled K-43 in the water supply, which was a substance we went on to learn more about in Venom War. But nonetheless, at the time, Bren was tied up and nearly drowned in a pool full of water laced with the chemical. And when this happened, Toxin tore through these guys to get to Bren, only to jump in that water and nearly die trying to save him. And with the last bit of strength that Toxin had, he used it to bond with Bren just to make sure that he got out okay. And I mean, once they got to a safe place, Toxin only survived thanks to Flash, and he still hasn't fully recovered since. But at this point, Toxin, he's asking about Bren, he wants to make sure the kid's okay. So Flash tells him he's where a kid ought to be, at home, safe. And that's where Toxin's like, he was safe bonded to me. And right here, Flash is like, was he though? You remember Pat Mulligan? Your first host? What about him? And Toxin, with a mouthful of food, he's just like, yeah, he died. But given this whole situation with Toxin being locked up in here, and Flash being able to move around as he pleases, it has Toxin asking, like, how long is it gonna be before they just fire him and Sleeper off into space? And that's where Flash is just like, well, you know, we can't just exile symbiotes to random planets. As much as some people in power would love to, they tried that with the Hulk once and it didn't go great. And the truth is, there's just not a lot of places out there that are welcoming symbiotes with open arms. And it's like with Toxin talking to Flash about this here, it just has him like, that's because nobody wants us. And it's like Toxin really has an emotional breakdown here, because he tells Flash, you should let them starve us, let them execute us. Anything's better than this loneliness day after day. You're lucky, Flash, you're a host creature, naturally self-contained. You don't need other people like we do. No being in the universe knows solitude as a symbiote does. And you know, it's crazy to even see Toxin in this state, because back at a time when symbiotes were much more simple creatures, there's this whole thing where with Toxin being the offspring of the Carnage symbiote and the 1000th symbiote of his lineage, he was supposed to be insanely powerful, way beyond Venom and Carnage. And I mean, things started on that path, but by the time we got around to Carnage Volume 2, and the whole battle with Chthon, and it was like all that promise of what he was going to be just got lost and forgotten. But nonetheless, Flash tries to cheer him up here by letting Toxin know that he's got Sleeper, so it's not like he's here all alone. But the thing is with Sleeper, he's also self-contained, so he doesn't need a host. And Toxin even goes on to tell Flash that Sleeper hasn't said a word since Venom War. And it's not even like he's mad or anything, it's just that he's like in this zen state. But there's more to it as far as what's going on with Sleeper, and we'll come back to that. But in the here and now, Toxin just tells Flash, as Bren would say, Sleeper is chillin'. But then it's here where Flash is told that time's up, as he's pulled out of visitation by Ripcord, the leader of S.C.A.R Squad 1. Because as it turns out, the only reason S.C.A.R isn't breathing down Flash's neck is because they want him to get information out of Toxin and whoever else they bring in. While in his case, he's using this opportunity to make sure that the symbiotes are given a fair shake, while also using his leverage to protect Normie, Bren, and Dylan, who otherwise would have been tried as adults. So yeah, this is basically what All New Venom was talking about not too long ago, as far as Flash taking care of Bren and Normie. But nonetheless, with Flash working with these guys, Ripcord isn't happy with his results, or better yet, the lack thereof, because he hasn't brought her any useful information. In his quote-unquote symbiote expertise, it has yet to prove itself to be a benefit to S.C.A.R in any capacity. And Ripcord notices this, and I mean she's not wrong because Flash really ain't trying to help these people. But this turns into a situation where she applies pressure. And she basically tells him like, look, there's a new Venom out there, and you're anti-Venom. So anti-Venom this situation and bring him in. And she tells him it's either that or the deal's off. So if Flash doesn't bring in the all-new Venom, S.C.A.R's bringing in Dylan Brock. But after this, the next day we head over to Midtown, where we pick up with a couple of guys who see this girl approaching, and one of them's like, bro, look at that. And at first they're talking about the view, but the focus quickly heads over to this young lady. So one of them approaches while the other one starts recording with his phone. And the one that's approaching the girl, he looks in the camera like, shout out to all my little bros. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll show you how to talk nice to a lady. I'll show you how it's done. Or something along those lines. But when he walks up to her, he says, hey, I just wanted to say that's a beautiful necklace on a beautiful lady. And then he's like, is that Versace? Only for her to tell him no, it's an image inducer, just before revealing that she's actually Madame Masque, to only then tell him that the mask is Versace. And that's when she tells his friend to switch to a live stream. So he's like, okay, sure, if you want. And when he does, she just catches the other guy with a headshot on the live stream, just before she turns to the camera and says, now, let's see who's watching. It's just like, man, you gonna do old boy like that? Then look back at it. That's wild. And following this, we head over to the Daily Bugle, where we catch up with Rick Jones and Robbie Robertson, where it's like now Rick's asking Robbie about the all-new Venom incident that he put on the front page that we saw go down in issue 3. But Robbie's just like, he approved it for the front page while he was home with his wife. And as it turns out, Mayor Luke Cage was live on the air at the exact moment the photo was taken. And that's when Robbie's like, but where were you, Rick? And Rick tells him, man, I was sleeping. Which really isn't the strongest alibi, but it is true. And we're gonna find out how true in just a moment. But while they're here, and I gotta say, Rick, man, he killing me with these t-shirts. He's been rocking the superhero plugs this whole series, from Marvel Comics to Hulk, Fantastic Four. He's got them all. But while they're here, he gets a notification from his app that keeps tabs on whenever something's popping off. And recently, with him having it set to Venom or Madame Masque, he picks up the feed of Madame Masque killing a guy on a live stream. And even though this isn't something she'd normally do, like it's not her MO. At least not as far as killing a random civilian, but it's clear that she's trying to get someone's attention. So right here, Rick's like, I gotta head down there. And Robbie's like, oh, okay. That sounds kind of venomous if you ask me. But Rick's like, nah, I'm heading down there to cover the story, man, jeez. And Rick goes on to say, I'm the Bugle's cape guy. Plus, Madame Masque right in the middle of this whole Venom done it. And if she starts sprouting Symbiote, I want a front row seat. And Robbie's just like, plausible, because you can just tell he's pressing X to doubt this whole time. And right after Rick leaves, Robbie heads out too. But back over at Midtown, we find Madame Masque, who's like, I know what you're all thinking. When will the police get here? What about the superheroes? Won't someone save us? And she goes on to say, I have faith in law and order. I say they'll find out about this very quickly. Iron Man will probably be the first hero on the scene. I'm one of his after all. Tony and I were romantically involved, you know? He's very passionate in bed. I think that's all the guilt. What do you think? And this dude's just holding the camera like, please don't kill me. But she goes on to make her point here, because she talks about what other heroes might show up, with it really depending on who's online like that, whether it's Captain America, who had a hotline at one point, or the Punisher with his computer guy. But the thing is, with heroes, you never know, because they're always changing, they're always in flux. Villains, on the other hand, they're way more consistent, way more predictable. And as soon as she says that, Dr. Forsen shows up, just as she expected, because she knew he would show up here before any of the heroes, or the authorities. So she points the gun at him next. And right there, he's just like, you know these suits are bulletproof, right? And that's what she tells him, like, yeah, but this ain't a bullet though. And when she squeezes the trigger, lo and behold, this itty bitty tiny little M.O.D.O.K comes flying out of that gun. And it's almost like it's in slow motion, as M.O.D.O.K goes racing towards this dude's head. But out of nowhere, all new Venom jumps in front of Dr. Forsen, catching the shot right in the eye. And that's where little M.O.D.O.K starts to get big again, which lets us know the vial that we saw Madame Masque with at the end of issue 3 was Pym particles, because at the time it was this whole cliffhanger / mystery thing going on. But when M.O.D.O.K goes back big here, for a second all new Venom looks like a Funko Pop, before their head actually goes pop and M.O.D.O.K comes flying out. And this dude's not happy at all, because he had this whole plan where he was going to go into Dr. Forsen's head and direct his every action as a way for him to regain control of AIM. But after all new Venom messed up his plans, this spooked Forsen, so him and his guys got up out of there. And this just leads to M.O.D.O.K going off and saying, no, I can't have nice things. I'm designed only for killing, only for killing. Well, fine. Killing it shall be, which really is just a reference to M.O.D.O.K's name, which stands for mental organism designed only for killing, but at the same time, it's like, that's not always what it stood for. So why not just change it again, man? But on second thought, who really wants this guy to turn into a mental organism designed only for kissing? So yeah, that could get really scary, really fast. But then it's here where all new Venom calls Madam Masque a twisted maniac after shooting at the guy who was live streaming. And after that, she's like, she's gonna kill another one. So all new Venom webs her up real quick, only to find out that it was a distraction so M.O.D.O.K could hit them with a psionic murder beam. And just after he does, M.O.D.O.K goes on to get Madam Masque out of Venom's webs, only for her to point out that Venom's still moving. So right here, M.O.D.O.K's like, well, that's embarrassing. My psionic murder beam is usually efficient. The twinned minds of a symbiote and the host must have twice the resistance to mental attack, so let's double the dose, shall we? But then it's right here where Rick Jones shows up, and he's like, Rick Jones, Daily Bugle, mind if I ask you guys a few questions? And Madam Masque is like, sure, but I got a question for you. How'd you get up here? Cause she tells him, I sealed the elevators to this deck, and by now the building's surely been evacuated anyway. So Rick's like, that's actually a good point. How did I get up here? And this is where symbiote material just comes flying out of him, covering his whole body. And as all new Venom is watching this happen, they're just like, you. And this is where we see Rick Jones has been used as a sleeper agent. And this is why, like Toxin said, Sleeper hadn't spoken since Venom War. Because like we saw in the previous Venom series, Sleeper has the ability to leave symbiote material with others and remote pilot them from another location. So yeah, pretty brilliant plan on Sleeper's part, which only makes Rick's comment from earlier that much funnier. When Robbie asked him, where were you when Venom showed up? And Rick was like, I was sleeping. Well, that definitely was the truth. So yeah, much like what we saw in Extreme Carnage, and even more so in the previous Venom series, the Sleeper symbiote is back at it again, with the symbiote style remote piloting. And so before we go, I want to welcome the newest patron to the channel, the Whatnot, and give a special thanks to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all your support. And for anyone else who is new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.